What is up, Zelda and RPG fans? In this video, I will be ranking all of the dungeons in Link's Awakening. And I'll be basing this off the Switch version. The DX version and the original are both fantastic, but this is the one that most people have played, so this is probably the smart one to pick. But yeah, I'll be ranking all the dungeons in order. So yeah, let's get right into this. So in the first one we've got is the Tail Cave. So, yeah, the Tail Cave, it's alright. I mean, it's a first dungeon. That's kind of what brings it down the most. I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's nothing special, though. That is unfortunate. Because, it's not bad, but it's also not. So, it's just a small little dungeon, and the item we get here is the Oh, the Rock's Feather. Right. The Rock's Feather. Yeah, so the Rock's Feather is a good first item. It's one of my favorite items in this. So that is one good thing about the Tail Cave. It's not a bad, straight up bad dungeon, or even a bad first dungeon. It's a pretty good first dungeon. But typically in the Zelda series, first dungeons do rank pretty just because they're very simple. You have your one item at that point. But it's not bad. So you go over here, you get the Rock's Feather, and you also have the magic powder at this point. I will say we've got a pretty good mini boss here with the rolling bones. I made a Link's Awakening boss video if you want to check that out. I do really enjoy the rolling bones fight. It's pretty easy. You just jump around using the sword and the Rock's Feather to kill it, but it's still pretty fun. And Moldorm is a very iconic Zelda boss fight, but this is one of the better iterations of Moldorm because he tends to protect himself and it's not quite as easy past Moldorm. That's really so. Yeah, it's a pretty good fight all around, and the aesthetic is all right, but really, it's nothing too special. The tail. I'm gonna put it in the C tier. I think it's just pretty average. I don't have anything wrong with it, but it is just a pretty average, alright first. And the Bottle Grotto follows up the Tail Cave decently well with the ability we get the good old power bracelet, which, to be fair, is not a very good dungeon item. I always like the games where the power bracelet you just find in the map and it to get to the next dungeon or something, not like getting it in the dungeon. It just feels like a lame thing to have a whole dungeon where basically the gimmick is throwing around pots. I think that's pretty bad. And I get why people might like this dungeon. I think it's fun that it's shaped like a pot and the pots and all that stuff. But even the things that people do like, I do think the Hinox mini boss is not that bad, but it's still pretty mid. And the Genie boss, I know a lot of people like. I see a lot of people rank that as one of their favorite bosses. I think it's just kind of dumb. You throw, yet again, you throw the bottle into the wall, it breaks, and you slash the dude. I mean, I get why people like it, but it's not that great. Heck, my favorite part about this dungeon was getting there with Bow Wow, the chainsaw. So, yeah, honestly, I'm not a big fan of this dungeon. It's just a pretty mediocre uh, Zelda dungeon in general. I'm still going to give it a C tier. I don't think it's awful, but definitely below the tier. Definitely a step down in my opinion. I get why people like it. I do like that it's shaped like a bottle and all that stuff, aesthetic or whatever, but it's just not that good. All right, next we move into the Key Cavern, which is all about keys. It's shaped like two keys. Nice. And there's also a ton of small keys. Nice. We also get the Pegasus boots, a pretty good item. Yeah, I do think that typically a lot of early dungeons do suffer just from not having that many items, so the puzzles aren't too great. But I do like the obsessive amount of small keys in this dungeon. I think that's fun. I love collecting the keys, so having a ton of them, little dopamine rushes here and there, not bad. I do think it's a decent dungeon. It's a great all-timer Zelda dungeon. Absolutely not. But is it a decent dungeon? Yeah, it's fine. I'm gonna give it a B tier. It's pretty good. It is one of the, yeah, it's not like too standout, but I don't have anything wrong with it. I'd say it's probably like a little bit above. At least in terms of 2D Zelda dungeons, I'd say this is like smack dab in the middle. Like it's pretty good. Like above average, but nothing way too special. I will say one thing that does hold it back are the bosses, the Dodongo snakes and the slime eyes, two of the worst bosses in the game. So that's pretty sad. But this is pretty average. I get why people would like the Tail Cave or the Bottle Grotto better, but again, I just like how many freaking small keys there are in this. So you know what? That makes me like it. All right, next we've got the Color Dungeon, which is a pretty decent dungeon. I'm gonna say it's right above the Key Cavern. It has this cool color aesthetic to it. It was in the originally the Link's Awakening DX version, which makes sense because it's all about color, and I'm glad they kept it for this game. A lot of times recently, like games will not keep their bonus dungeons. Like a lot of RPGs like Final Fantasy Pixel remasters just keep getting rid of content. It makes me mad. So I'm glad they just kept the color dungeon in this. So, and I like the rewards you get from it. The red mail, the blue mail. It's fun. There's some fun battles in here. Some fun color related puzzles. I like the one where it's like the lights out game, where you have to like get this square and fill it up. Yeah, see, it's like this thingy. If you can see that small, but yeah. And this place has two mini bosses, which is nice: the giant buzz blob and the stone hinox. I will say they are definitely two of my least favorite mini bosses in the game, but hey, there's two of them, so that makes up for one, I guess. The hard hit beetle is the most cheesable boss ever. It's so easy to kill, but it's fun. I kind of liked unlocking it for the dungeon maker thing, so I could just quickly run through dungeons if I ever needed some something. So that was fun. But yeah, definitely good. It's a decent dungeon. I like all the color related puzzles, but in terms of like overall in the whole game, it's memorable, but it's not like amazing. So I'm gonna put it there. I think I might move it up to A tier, but probably not. I think a high B tier is fitting for. Or next we have the Angler's Tunnel, which is not my favorite. I'm gonna give it a C tier. And my big problem with this is again, it's kind of like the my problem with the Bottle Grotto. I don't think it's that interesting to get Zora's flippers in a dungeon. I also think that is kind of a problem with the Pegasus boots too. But the Pegasus boots do have a bit more interesting puzzles, especially in this game. They do a good job of balancing out the puzzles. But the Angler's Tunnel, it kind of just is the introduction to swimming, and yeah, it has a cool aesthetic to it. I do like the cue ball and anglerfish fights, so I will say those are definitely particular highlights for me. But I just don't remember like any puzzles or in this place. I think the best part for me is the anglerfish boss, and in the original version, that boss is so trash because it's just too easy. So I don't know. I definitely think that the Angler's Tunnel is definitely just C tier. It's a little more memorable to me than these other two. I like the boss better, but nothing too special. Now, Catfish's Maw is jumping up easy A tier. Um, yeah, it's definitely an A tier dungeon for me. And it's just awesome. So we get the hook shot here. We have the fun Master Stalfos mini boss you have to fight multiple times. The slime eel boss fight is pretty challenging. Probably the hardest boss in the game. This is really fun. Hook shot puzzles are great. Just at this point, having multiple items really just makes the dungeon a lot. Having the hook shot, the rocks, feather, Pegasus boots, and all that stuff at this point just makes it quite a bit better. And yeah, I just remember this dungeon quite a bit. It's awesome. Hookshot, Master Stalfos, the Slime Eel, great fights. Yeah, I think overall it's just a well designed dungeon. And yeah, it might not be as, it's definitely not as It's definitely not as memorable and crazy as these next few. I definitely think this game is backloaded with a good dungeon. But yeah, I do think that this is a really solid dungeon. And this was the first one in this game where I was like, oh yeah, that was good. So yeah. All right, next we've got the Face Shrine, which I have a love-hate relationship with. I thought it sucked, and then I looked back on it and I was like, actually, that was kind of sick. So it has a lot of stuff to do with faces, and I do think that yes, the level 2 power bracelet's got to be like the worst thing. Like, it's so stupid. Like, it's just an awful dungeon item compared to most. But as a great mini boss in the form of Smasher, a great boss in the form of Facade. uh Again, if you want to check out more of my opinions on the bosses, I've got a video up for that. But the cool stuff, it's just all the different design choices, the great dungeon design, like you'll be thinking around here. The chess puzzle is nice. Hopefully, no kids played this without having played chess before. I can see that being pretty annoying. But yeah, the Face Shrine, great fights, just great dungeon design in general. Yeah, it is pretty annoying to navigate at sometimes, but once you figure it out, it's just super satisfying. Yeah, it is one of those ones that is kind of annoying, but it also is very satisfying, and that's my type of dungeon. Yeah, it might annoy me at first, but in the end, if I felt really cool about completing it, so yeah. All right, next we have got the Eagle's Tower, which I'm going to be basic and agree with the general consensus that this is an absolute banger. Like, everything about this place makes it one of my favorite Zelda dungeons. Like, I'm more of a 2D Zelda guy, as I've probably said many times on my channel before, and this is just like peak 2D dungeon design. It's got great boss fight, evil eagle. It's got the mirror shield, which is nice. Just a nice upgrade. Yeah, it's not really used too well in the dungeon, but I think at this point there's just so much packed in this dungeon that if there was another item, it wouldn't be too much. It would be cool, but yeah, I think it's all good that we got it. There's 4 floors, and you have to be thinking, oh, because a lot of times you have to drop down and do stuff, activate these blue and orange switches to be able to get places. And you're just thinking very abstractly the whole time, and you have to navigate by throwing this iron ball and collapsing 4 pillars, breaking the higher floors, and giving him access. It's just so sick. Everything about this dungeon is masterful, and it's just really fun. It's up there as one of my favorite Zelda dungeons. Yeah, this is not what I'm going to forget. This is 2D design. Amazing 2D design. And I think it's the only S tier dungeon in this game. It's just fantastic. I absolutely love the Eagle Tower. Yeah, it's super memorable. I haven't played the game in a bit, and I still remember. Like, I can tell you where to go to beat this place and all that stuff. Like, and there's so many different types of enemies in the place. Just a shout out to that. Like every freaking enemy in the game. And yeah, that evil eagle boss fight, one of my absolute favorites. I love when the 2D Zelda dungeons go to like a more side-scrolling boss fights. Those are fun. And yeah, I really like this. This is just amazing. All right, Eternal Rock is also fantastic, but I don't think it's as masterful as Eagle's Tower. But I will say top A for it. It is just a fantastic dungeon all around. Um, Even from the very beginning, like entering the dang dungeon, there's a mini boss, so that's really cool on the outside. So yeah, that is awesome. And then we've got refights of the Rolling Bones, the Hinox, the Dodongo snakes, and Cue Ball all in one dungeon. And Smasher. It's a ton of mini bosses in this dungeon, which is absolutely fantastic. There's also tons of enemy variety here. Bueno is the new mini boss here, and he's really fun to fight. Great duel. And this is a very large dungeon. Lots of staircases. Lots of cool stuff. The magic rod is a nice dungeon item. I wish it was gained a little earlier in the dungeon, but yeah, it's cool. I'm sad we get the magic rod so late in the game, but luckily the boomerang in this game is great. Very powerful, so I guess I'm okay with the magic rod being gained later. I usually try to get the magic rod as soon as possible in like Zelda 1 and stuff, so maybe that's just me. But I think the Turtle Rock is awesome, and the movable blocks that are pushed and controlled, is awesome. That's a great feature. Again, this is a step above in the Zelda dungeon design, but there is a couple things that make me not want to put it in the S tier. Mostly the final, yeah, the magic rod, you just don't get to use it that much. Lots of mini boss repeats. I would have liked some new ones. And the final boss is super underwhelming for the final dungeon boss. So yeah, it's fine. I mean, yeah, it's amazing dungeon, but the boss fights could have used a work. So, and it's just not as novel and awesome as Eagle's Tower, and it is Turtle Rock, which is in like at least two others. So I mean, good stuff, but not quite as good as Eagle. And then unfortunately, the final dungeon in this game is like the worst final dungeon in the whole Zelda series. Like easy, I'm not gonna. Part of me wants to put it in F tier. I'm not, but I'm gonna put it in D tier. The Windfish's egg. Sure, from a game perspective, I understand why it makes sense to me why the frick you just go in, do a little puzzle, and fight the final boss. Heck, even the puzzle doesn't make that much sense. Because I feel like that egg does not look big enough for that. But I do think that, yeah, one puzzle and a boss is just not great. But I will say, this is one of a great final boss. Like, the final boss is really well done. The cutscenes are really well done. The aesthetic is well done. Like, it's a cool fight, but I mean, a cool dungeon where the fight is, you beat the game, all that stuff. From a story standpoint or whatever, it makes sense. I get why it is not like a longer dungeon, but that still doesn't. Yeah, that still doesn't. Yeah, I'm yawning even thinking about it. But yeah, it's just like, bro, we could have done better. Like, maybe Mount Tamarack itself, how you pronounce it, Tamarack. There we go. Maybe that could have been the dungeon, and then the egg was on top, and then there's a boss or something. I just feel like there should have been a distinct final dungeon. Maybe people don't agree with me. Maybe people are just happy the game ended. I don't know. It's a fine. It's a good, from a narrative standpoint. It is one of the better final dungeons. It's not just like Ganon in the castle. It is interesting. But yeah, if I think back to a lot of Zelda dungeons, like even some of the weaker ones, like I'll take the final dungeons of Zelda 1 any day, Zelda 2 any day over this. The moon in Majora's Mask is pretty infamously mid, but even that's quite a step up from, like, the Windfish egg is just, yeah. As much, I honestly might even want, I'm not going to say F tier, but I'm still thinking D tier is a little generous. I'm going to make an E tier just to put this egg in. I want there to be a distinct gap between, yeah, there we go. I just want there to be a distinct gap. Like, this is, some people don't even consider this a dungeon, but I just feel like I have to. And it is just pretty mediocre. I just wish that we got like a true final dungeon. And Turtle Rock is a great final, kind of final dungeon. Really, it is pretty underwhelming that most Zelda final dungeons are fantastic. And then Link's Awakening failed department. Anyway, thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, stick around for more Zelda videos in the future. I got a Link's Awakening boss ranking up already. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out some of those other ones. I'm going to make a bunch of Zelda videos down the road. So yeah, I hope you enjoy those. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, Zelda fans.